You're driving home from work. It's been a long day. You're thinking about dinner, maybe what's on TV tonight. Then you glance in your rearview mirror. There's a vehicle behind you, not a regular police cruiser. It says ICE on the side. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The lights come on. Your heart drops into your stomach. You pull over. An agent walks up to your window, and what you say in the next 10 seconds could change your entire life. Most drivers panic in this moment. They start talking, they start explaining, they start answering questions they don't have to answer. And that's exactly what ICE agents are trained to exploit. Here's something most people don't realize. Every single day, people are detained during traffic stops, not because agents had evidence, but because drivers talked themselves into detention. They volunteered information. They answered questions they had every legal right to refuse. I've spent years analyzing immigration enforcement cases and studying the constitutional protections that apply to everyone on American roads, not just citizens, everyone. And I've identified 4 words that can protect you in this exact situation. 4 words backed by the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. Miss this, and you could find yourself in a detention center wondering what went wrong. Know this, and you maintain the constitutional protections our legal system guarantees. This is educational content only, not legal advice for your specific situation. But every person deserves to understand their rights. Let's break down exactly what to say and why it works. The 4 words are simple. I plead the Fifth. That's it. I plead the Fifth. But here's the thing most people don't understand. The Fifth Amendment doesn't just protect you from answering questions about crimes. It protects you from being compelled to give any testimony that could be used against you. And in an ICE encounter, almost anything you say about yourself, your history, where you were born, how long you've been here, all of it can be used against you. Now let me show you what happens when someone doesn't know this. The agent approaches the window. He says, "Good evening. Where are you headed tonight?" The driver thinks, okay, that's a simple question. No big deal. So they answer, "Just heading home from work." The agent nods, says, "Where do you work?" The driver answers. Then the agent asks, "How long have you worked there?" The driver answers. Then, "Where were you born?" And now the driver hesitates, but they've already established a pattern of answering. They've already been cooperative. So they answer that too. And just like that, the driver has provided information that can be used in immigration proceedings. All because they thought being helpful was the right approach. Here's the right way. The agent approaches. "Good evening. Where are you headed tonight?" You keep your hands visible on the steering wheel. You speak calmly and clearly. You say, "I plead the Fifth." The agent might look surprised. They might ask another question. "Where do you work?" You say it again. "I plead the Fifth." They push harder. "I'm just asking a simple question. Why won't you answer?" You stay calm. "I plead the Fifth." You're not being rude. You're not being aggressive. You're exercising a constitutional right that exists specifically for moments like this. But here's something critical that most people get wrong. The Supreme Court ruled in Salinas versus Texas in 2013 that simply staying silent isn't enough. You have to actually invoke your Fifth Amendment right. If you just sit there quietly, your silence can potentially be used against you. But when you explicitly say, "I plead the Fifth," you've created a legal record that you invoked your constitutional protection. Now let's talk about the second thing you need to know. You do not have to disclose your immigration status. This surprises a lot of people. They assume that if an ICE agent asks, they have to answer. They don't. Here's how this plays out wrong. The agent says, "Are you a United States citizen?" The driver thinks, "Well, I have to answer this. It's ICE." So they say, "No, I'm not." The agent says, "What's your immigration status?" The driver answers. Now they've provided exactly the information the agent was looking for. Information they had no legal obligation to provide. Here's the right way. "Are you a United States citizen?" You say, "I plead the Fifth." "What's your immigration status?" "I plead the Fifth." The agent might say, "If you have nothing to hide, why won't you answer?" You stay calm. "I plead the Fifth." You don't explain. You don't justify. You don't argue. You simply invoke your right. The Fourth and Fifth Amendments don't have a citizenship requirement. They protect all persons on American soil. But that's not even the trickiest situation you might face. Let's talk about what happens with passengers. Most people assume that if they're a passenger in a vehicle, they have to show ID when asked. In most states, that's not true. The driver typically has to provide license, registration, and insurance because they're operating the vehicle. But passengers? Different story. Here's the wrong way. ICE approaches. There are 2 people in the car. The agent says to the passenger, "I need to see your ID too." The passenger thinks, "Well, I guess I have to." They hand over their ID. Now their information is in the system. Now the agent has everything they need. Here's the right way. "I need to see your ID." The passenger says, "Am I being detained?" The agent says, "I just need to see your identification." The passenger says, "I do not consent to providing identification. Am I free to go?" The agent might push back, but unless they have reasonable suspicion that the passenger has committed a crime, they generally cannot compel ID from a passenger. Now something important, this varies by state. Some states have stop and identify laws, but even in those states, the law typically requires reasonable suspicion of criminal activity before ID can be demanded. Being a passenger in a car is not a crime. Let's move to the fourth thing you need to understand. You have the right to record the encounter. This is huge, and most people don't do it because they're afraid it will escalate the situation. But recording creates a record. It protects you. It keeps everyone accountable. Here's how to do it wrong. You pull out your phone and start waving it around. You say, "I'm recording this. You're violating my rights. I'm going to put this on the internet." Now you've escalated the situation, you've created tension, and you've taken your hands off the wheel, which is a safety issue. Here's the right way. Before you even roll down your window, if you have time, open your phone's camera app, prop it on the dashboard, or hand it to a passenger. If the agent asks, "Are you recording me?" you say calmly, "Yes, I am exercising my right to record." Then you keep your hands on the wheel. You don't wave the phone around. You don't make it confrontational. You simply document. Courts have consistently upheld the right to record police encounters in public spaces. This includes traffic stops. The recording could be crucial evidence if your rights are violated. But here's the thing that brings all of this together. The fifth trap, the one that catches more people than any other. ICE agents are trained in conversation. They're trained to build rapport. They're trained to make you comfortable. And that's when you let your guard down. Here's how it happens. The agent is friendly, professional. They say, "Look, I'm not trying to cause you any trouble. I just need to ask you a few questions so we can get this sorted out and you can be on your way." It sounds reasonable. It sounds like cooperation will make this faster. So you start talking. You answer questions. You explain things. And every single word becomes potential evidence. Here's what you need to understand. Being polite does not mean being talkative. You can be completely respectful while saying almost nothing. "Yes, sir." "No, sir. I plead the fifth." "Am I free to go?" Those are your phrases. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't need to tell them why you're invoking your rights. You simply invoke them. Let me put all of this together for you. 4 words. I plead the fifth. Say them calmly. Say them clearly. Say them as many times as you need to. You do not have to disclose your immigration status. The Fifth Amendment protects all persons, not just citizens. Passengers generally don't have to show ID unless there's reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. You have the right to record the encounter. Do it calmly and without confrontation. And remember, politeness and silence can coexist. You can be respectful while protecting yourself. Keep your hands on the steering wheel where they can be seen. If you need to reach for anything, announce it first. "I'm reaching for my registration in the glove compartment." Move slowly, stay calm. Never argue on the roadside. If your rights are violated, the fight happens in court, not on the street. Print these phrases out. Put them in your glove box. Practice them until they feel natural. Because when those lights flash behind you, you won't have time to think. You need to know. If you believe every driver deserves to understand their constitutional rights, I'd appreciate a subscribe. This has been educational content, not legal advice. If you're facing an actual legal situation, consult with a qualified attorney. Now, I mentioned the right to record, but there's a question most people ask that could actually hurt them if they say it wrong. I'll cover that in the next video. Remember, the smartest people aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who know exactly when to stop talking.